Okay, let's start with a big question. What if everything you think you know about society, about government, about freedom itself, was all a lie designed to control you? Well, that is the exact claim made by a really provocative book called The End of All Evil. And today, we're going to break down its core philosophy.
And this image you see here from the book's cover, it really says it all. It's this powerful idea that humanity is right on the edge of breaking free. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack the book's central and yes, super controversial argument that the systems we're told to trust, our laws, even our democracy, are actually the very tools used to enslave us.
So, to really get your head around this worldview, we have to start right where the book does. It all boils down to two really simple but totally radical truths. Okay, first up, freedom. Now, the book says freedom isn't about a list of things some government lets you do. No, it's the idea that every single human being has infinite value. It's not about what you're allowed to do, it's about what you are fundamentally worth. And right on the heels of that comes the definition of evil. It's just as simple. Anything, and I mean anything, that destroys freedom, anything that tells you that you have limited value or tries to control you, well, according to this book, that's evil, plain and simple. This is where it gets really interesting. The book splits the world into two camps. On one side, you have principles. Think of these as truths of the universe, like thermodynamics or gravity. They just are, and understanding them gives you power. It creates freedom. But then, on the other side, you have laws. The author argues these are totally artificial. They're just rules made up by people, and their whole purpose? To create slavery through commands and oaths that, let's be honest, always have to be backed up by force. All right, so if evil is all about destroying freedom, who or what is actually doing the destroying? The book says it all comes down to one single enemy. And that enemy has a name: authority. The book defines authority as basically any person or any system that claims it has the right to control other people. And by doing that, it automatically destroys their freedom and denies that infinite worth we just talked about. And get this quote. It just lays it all out there, doesn't it? It's an absolutely uncompromising stance. The book is saying your life is yours, period. Anyone who tells you that you have to give up control of your mind, your body, or your stuff isn't a legitimate government. They're an agent of evil. So how does authority actually pull this off? How does it stay in control? Well, the book says it has two main tools in its toolbox. The first one is pretty obvious, right? Violence, the threat of theft, prison, or worse. But the second tool, this one is way more subtle and maybe even more powerful. It's culture. Using laws and social pressure to make obedience feel totally normal. Let's dive a little deeper and see how these tools fit into what the book calls a repeating pattern of control throughout history. So here's the crucial part. This worldview says tyranny isn't some random accident. It follows a predictable playbook, a 5-step process that it claims all authorities use to enslave people. Step 1. It all starts with war, with violence. Step 2. They invent an enemy to make you scared. Step 3, they offer you protection from that enemy, but you have to obey them to get it. Step 4, they write laws to make all this seem legitimate and normal. And the final step, they use culture to make you feel like a bad person if you even question the authority. And this idea about culture is huge in the book. It basically argues that the main job of culture is to get us to police each other. Think about it. Social norms, what's considered proper, peer pressure, we end up becoming these unpaid enforcers of our own control. And here's a perfect example of how culture supposedly works its magic. The book says it twists the meaning of words. Take arrogance versus conceit. The book defines arrogance as simply understanding your own infinite worth, a good thing. But culture tells us that's bad, right? Because it deliberately confuses it with conceit, the belief that you're better than everyone else. And who practices conceit? Well, according to the book, that's the core belief of authority itself. Okay, all of this so far has been building to what is probably the book's most shocking claim. It's a claim that goes right after an idea that almost everyone on the planet believes in. So, let me ask you, if a king or a dictator running things is obviously evil, what's the answer? Democracy, right? Government by the people. That's gotta be the solution. But what does this book have to say about that? The answer from the author is a hard no. In fact, it goes even further. It argues that democracy is the greatest, the most perfect evil that can possibly exist. I know, that's a jaw-dropper. So let's really dig into the reasoning here.
Here's the logic. With a king, the evil is out in the open, right? One person is telling everyone else what to do. But democracy, the book argues, is sneakier. It gives everyone a vote, but what is a vote? The book frames it as the power to use the law to control your neighbors. So in a democracy, tyranny isn't done by one person, it becomes a group project. Everyone becomes a slave to what the majority wants, but at the same time, everyone gets to be a master over the minority. Okay, I know this all sounds incredibly dark and pessimistic, but, and this is a big but, the book doesn't actually end on a down note. It flips the script completely and ends with this surprisingly optimistic prediction about the inevitable end of all evil. So remember that pattern of tyranny? The author says there's an opposing force, the pattern of liberty. And here's the difference. While tyranny just keeps repeating the same old patterns, liberty is on a one-way track, always moving forward. The argument is that freedom, over the long arc of history, never permanently goes backwards. And what's driving this forward march of liberty? Technology. The book points to these massive leaps that have totally changed the game, shifting power away from big centralized authorities and into the hands of individuals. First, you get gunpowder, which lets a small group stand up to a massive army. Then, the printing press comes along and shatters the control over information. And now, the internet. It makes information basically indestructible, and, the book claims, is on its way to making a lot of laws completely unenforceable. And that brings us right back to where we started, with this image of the world breaking its chains. The book's final conclusion is this: evil isn't getting stronger, it's dying. All the chaos and conflict we see around the world today, it's not a sign that things are getting worse. It's just the sound of old, outdated authorities thrashing around as they lose their grip for good. So in the end of all evil is designed to shake up everything you thought you knew about how society works. And it leaves you with this one massive, provocative question to think about. If authority really is the source of evil, what would a world based entirely on individual freedom, on the infinite value of every single person, what would that world truly look like?